Assalamu alaikum.
Now, what's up, dudes? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. We're doing hadith inshallah numbers 13 and 14 today from hadith Imam al-Nawawi, the 40 hadith of Nawawi. If anybody needs a copy, it's two copies. There's copies right here of hadith number 13 and hadith number 14 if you need them. Soon we'll be halfway through the 40 hadith or the 42 hadith of the Nawawi, rahimahullah, inshallah. Knowledge of these hadith, the statements of the Prophet ﷺ, and what they mean is not meant to be information that we just pile up without using it. It's supposed to be that, as they say, you know better, you do better. So what we learn, we're supposed to be trying to practice it to the best of our ability. We're not supposed to just be taking in a bunch of information and we're not using it. And if we are using it, the information, then it should change us to some degree. It should have an effect on our Islam in general. And depending on the hadith or what we learn, it should affect that specific area. So just a reminder that we never should be learning or attending a class or a lecture just for the sake of killing time or just because there's nothing else to do, and then we go take information and then we don't use it to benefit ourselves, but it's supposed to be used that we benefit from everything that we learn and we try to implement it to the best of our ability. Hadith number 13. Hadith number 13 is on Abi Hamza Anas ibn Malik خادم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم رضي الله عنه عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام قال لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه رواه البخاري ومسلم. This is the hadith that's on the front door. If you came in here, this hadith is written on the front door. So we hope, inshallah, that it's a proof for us and not a proof against us, that this hadith applies to all of us, inshallah. Tayyib, the first thing is the companion Anas ibn Malik. Two things we learn about him just from the hadith itself. Two things we learned about Anas from the hadith itself, just from the hadith. Anybody? No doubt he was a companion. That's tayyib. Huh? Son of a companion?
Companion, son of a companion.
Nah. There's not a trick question. If you're looking at it, huh? He was a servant of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, oh, all right. That's what it says, right? It says the servant of the Messenger ﷺ, right? Which is important. As a companion, we know it's a companion, he served the Prophet ﷺ. Because there's other narrations about how the Prophet ﷺ would treat people, right? His servants. That he never did what? He never asked them why they did something. Right? So there's other narrations about how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with the people that were serving him. Tell you, what else do we know about Anas ibn Malik just from the hadith? Huh? That goes without saying. Just from looking at the text. If you're not looking at the text, it's not a huh? What's his kunya? Abu Hamza. Listen, we know stuff about people who mean nothing to us. If somebody asks you the middle name of one of them basketball players, right, we probably know it. Or the college they went to, or their height, what draft pick they went, right? We'll know that with no problem. These Sahaba companions, the people we say we're following and practicing the way they understood it, right? We should want to know them little things about them. Because you know they got them little card games, Islamic trivia. Who was the servant of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Anas ibn Malik, right? His kunya is Abu Hamza. Tayyib. That's just from looking at the hadith. Small stuff like that, just from looking at the hadith so we know what we're talking about, right? His father was not a companion. And if you read this ain't got nothing to do with you, Sheikh, my bad. Not like that. So you might not have the book. Because there's different explanations of the book. I don't know if you had this book. Sheikh Fawzan explains a little bit about how his father left Medina and his father died. His father wasn't Muslim. And then his mother took him, Anas, his mother took him to the Prophet ﷺ to be the servant of the Prophet ﷺ. Which proves what about his mother? MashaAllah. She was Muslim, and what else? She wanted good for her son. I was going there, but I'm not saying nothing else. She wanted good for her son, even though, because if you look at it, we got a lot of, in our community, a lot of sisters, they're Muslims, and the baby father's not a Muslim, right? And they have children, right? Is that real or that's not real? Tayyib. Because that's the case doesn't mean that that child can turn out to be something great. Right? Don't mean that child can't turn out to be something great because their father is not Muslim, because their mother's not Muslim, only one parent is Muslim. It doesn't mean that that child can't grow up to be something great like Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. Tayyib. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La yu'minu ahdukum." That, as it says, none of you believe. None of you will believe. And here it says, none of you truly believes. None of you will believe. And one translation, and the other translation says, none of you truly believes. Is it a difference between the two? Is it a difference? What's the difference?
Well, it can be interpreted that none of you believe in terms of none of you have iman at all.
None of you, okay. No, don't tell me the intent. Just tell me the intent. No. See, that's no. I want to know between. It says one, because if I'm home, there's people with different books in here. This translation says none of you will believe, right? And this translation says none of you truly believes. Is it a difference? Yes. What's the difference?
Truly, you could believe something, but you could believe it half-heartedly. You truly believe it is 100%.
Jade, okay.
Well, I'm saying truly believe it. It's like you absolutely believe it. None of you will believe it. It's just like, you won't believe it, but truly just got more intensity going. It's just like,
Truly has more intensity. I like that. Truly has more intensity. Truly is closer to what's intended, right? But what's intended is not translated the way it's intended. It's intended is, none of you have the full, complete iman. Because if you say none of you believe with the meaning that you don't believe unless you do this, that means you not wanting for your brother what you want for yourself takes you out of Islam. And that's not the case. All right? So the first thing he says, Sheikh Fawzan, Hafidullah, La yakmulu imanuhu, that their person's iman is not complete. And if their iman is not complete, then that means what? It's deficient. Deficient meaning? Incomplete. Right? Which means to Ahl Sunnah that a person's iman could be fully full and it could be incomplete. Right? Everybody's not the same. Which means if a person, everybody's iman not the same, everybody's faith is not the same, that means people are going to function different. Because your faith causes you to behave in certain ways. It prevents you from doing certain things. It pushes you to do other things. So if a person's iman is not complete, there's certain things about Islam that one, they might not practice. Two, they might not even understand it. Now, if a person is like that, I'm just using numbers just for example. If a person's iman, and there, of course, y'all, there's no numbers. This is just an example. If a person's iman is on 60%, right, out of 100, and another person's iman is on 90%, do you really think they're going to behave the same way? No, it's going to be things that that person in the 90 percentile, it's going to be easy for them to do. It's going to be easy for them to do. And that person in the 60 percentile or 40 or 30, it's going to be difficult for them to do the same exact thing. And that's the reality of us when we walk around and see each other. We assume, because a lot of times we dress alike, that the percentile is the same, that we all on 90 and 95. That's what we assume, right? For the men and the women. So since we all dress the same, right? You see a thobe, you see an izar, right? You see a sajda mark, a beard, a baya, right? Shayla. We assume everybody's iman is on the same level, which is a incorrect assumption, right? Saying we don't know where people are. So now when we deal with each other, we dealing with each other as if everybody's understanding the iman is high. And then when you deal with the person and they respond a certain way, to us, we should understand, what we're supposed to understand is, okay, maybe that person's iman is not where I thought it was. But we take everything personal. Everything is a personal shot. Now we stop salamming them. We go all the way down the road of no husnul dhan for each other, no good thoughts about each other. Maybe they was going through something they man a little low this week, because he wasn't acting like that last week. He could be going through something. We human. Everybody goes through stuff. She didn't do that last time I saw her, but this day she gave me the cold shoulder a little bit. She ain't really had too much rap for me. It could have been anything. Or the last 3 times I saw her, it was like that. Right? She could be going through something. Let's make an excuse, right, for the person. So that's the first thing, that it doesn't mean that a person who doesn't love for their brother or sister what they love for themselves doesn't believe in Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because if we say that, that means if you don't do this, that takes you out of Islam, which is not the case. He said, so a person's faith is not complete until they love for their brother or their sister what they love for themselves. Meaning, he says, whoever doesn't do this, as we just said, whoever doesn't love for the next Muslim what you love for yourself, that means that your faith is not complete. It's not as strong as it should be. What percentage is that? Allahu A'lam. I only use 80 or 90 as an example. I don't know where that puts you in the percentile. But what we do know for sure is it's not what? It's not 100. For sure. Now, who wants to be a Muslim who doesn't have full iman? Who wants to be in the I'm 90? Who can in their right mind be like, man, I'm at 90, so I'm good? Right? That's not the approach. Never was. You never find the approach with the companions of the Prophet, something like that. They never thought, that wasn't the mentality that they did enough. It wasn't the mentality that they did enough. And these are people who, some of them, at the time of the Prophet, he said that they were in paradise. And they were still living. And even with that, they still didn't kick back. They ain't kick back, but my name was mentioned in the Hadith. The 10 promised paradise. And they still living. One of the people who narrated the Hadith from the Prophet, his name was in the Hadith. He's narrating the Hadith from the Prophet, mentioning the 10 people who the Prophet said are promised paradise, and his name, the narrator, is in the Hadith itself. They didn't stop there and say, well, I'm cool, like we do. See, we've been around the masjids for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years. So people know me. So since everybody know me, my rep good. So I don't really have to do Islamically what I should be doing like that. Because people know me. I already did that. Like some people think I did that 10 years ago. Worship. I'm talking about worship. I was doing that 10 years ago. It was worship though. When do worship run out? When the law call you back. What's the expiration date on worship? fasting Mondays and Thursdays. Like, what's the expiration date that I did that? I was doing that 10 years ago. I don't do that no more. I've heard people, we was doing that 2000. It's worship. It's no expiration date on worship unless maybe Allah give us good health, but a person might have a health condition and now they can't fast the voluntary fast like they used to. You know what I'm saying? A person's knees get bad, right? Now they can't stand as long as they used to stand. Maybe in that case, but just stop doing worship because I did that before. All right? We don't find that anywhere in the stories of the people who were considered to be or bad worshipers on the times of the Salaf. Right? So a person's iman can be incomplete, still Muslim, but the iman is not complete. And what pushes a person's iman up? Worship, specifically. Give me something specific that'll push a person's, I gotta keep saying it. The number's an example, y'all. Nobody knows what percentage your iman is on. What pushes a person's iman up though? Huh? I don't want to give, all that's true, but I don't want to give you the answer that's right in front of us. No doubt, dua. No doubt, huh? No doubt. Having love for your brother, what you want for yourself. This hadith increases your iman. Allahu Akbar. Oh, I'm not saying none of that was wrong. I'm just saying the hadith shows a person's iman is complete by loving for their brother what they want for themselves. And the hadith also proves that your iman is not complete if you don't love for another Muslim what you want for yourself. And there's plenty of explanations for the hadith. And they say, the ulama say, it's not just for deen, it's for dunya. Also, anything you want for yourself from good, you should want for the next Muslim. Right? You want to learn. You want to know how to pray right. You want to know how to believe in Allah right. You should want that for the next Muslim. And if the next Muslim doesn't know how to pray correctly, or the next Muslim doesn't know how to believe in Allah properly, then what? Huh? You should want to help him. Or should we make dua against him on the internet? Allah musta'an. If we practice these, this book is mentioned for a reason. Scholars praise this book for a reason. It's only 42 hadith that he put in the book. With Ibn Rajab's additions, it's 50 hadith. 50. Let's just go high on 50. You know how many hadiths are in Sahih Bukhari? Thousands. Right? You know how many hadiths are in the Musnad of Imam Ahmed? 40,000. 40 hadith that the scholars of Islam have praised all over the world. It's not just here, all over the world. That these 40 hadith are so important because it was contained in them. That the same thing is included, that as he gets to in the second part, after saying that what's intended by your brother is your Muslim brother. Why? لِأَنَّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِخْوَةً, because the believers are brothers. Just like Allah said, and this is a pop quiz, what surah is that? Al-Hujurat. Hujurat is number 47? 49. Surah 49, verse number 10, where Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. For sure, without doubt, the believers are brothers. That is what you call the asl. That the Muslim is your brother. That's the asl. Is it possible that a Muslim is no longer your brother? Good. If they leave Islam, then we're not considered brothers in faith anymore. But as long as they Muslim, then what? The believers are brothers. Do brothers agree all the time? Are brothers perfect? Brothers see eye to eye all the time? But they brothers. Can your brother be dead wrong? He could be dead wrong. Right? He could be dead wrong every time. Every time y'all get in, he could be wrong or she could be wrong. But when it's all said and done, when they die, we're going to have a what for them? A janazah. The problem is we don't even want to go to the janazah. Let me sit down until I catch them. As if this ayah doesn't apply. How we remove the usul, the basic rules of Islam, and start practicing the branches. Many of us practice the exceptions. We don't practice the rule, we practice the exceptions to the rule. And that's part of the problem that we are having in this city. People don't know what the rule is, and they don't know what the exception is. They don't know the exception to the rule. So they end up practicing the rule before they they end up practicing the exception instead of practicing the rule. The rule is that the Muslims are brothers. Yes.
Makes you think about Salat al-Janazah.
Hmm.
You know, if your brother passes away, that's one of the rights of the Muslims.
One of the rights of the Muslims.
But attending Salat al-Janazah is part of kifayah.
Hmm.
So a person may be lackadaisical. Well, you know, if some of the Muslims know this is sufficient for it, all right, okay, I'm gonna go.
Right.
My brothers is gonna go, and they may leave it off instead of giving your brother that right.
No doubt. No doubt. We should look at it like all we gotta do is use the hadith. How many Muslims you want to come to your funeral? You want the Muslims to show up, make dua for you? If somebody else died, why don't you do the same thing? One for your brother, what you want for? It's simple. It's not like you want for your brother, what you want for yourself. You would want a bunch of Muslims to come to your janazah, treat you right, wash you good, be gentle with you. You would want Muslims at your washing to do what? To do the best job they could do. Would you want Muslims at your washing while they washing your body talking about a basketball game? So why would you go in there and talk about stuff that has nothing to do with what we're doing? If we want for your brother what you want for yourself. Would you want people in there talking about stuff that has nothing to do with what we're doing? The reality of what's in front of us. You wouldn't want that. So why are we going to go into a washing or we go to a janazah? Because our janazah is, and Allah forgive us, make us better. The behavior at the janazah is just, Allah mustaan. I don't know where, Allah alam, how we even got there. It's a janazah. It's a funeral procession. Somebody's dead, going back to meet Allah. We at the janazah, gritting on each other, don't want to give each other salams, hollering at, like disrespecting their non-Muslim family, showing no concern for their family that's not Muslim. They don't understand what's going on. We only had concern to even explain to them and had some gentleness with their mother. That's their mother, that's their family. We talking to them like they people in the street. Yo, look out. Y'all got to stand over there. Get out the way. Somebody dead family member, and we talking to them like they don't deserve to be respected. Want for your brother what you want for yourself. If you died, it's real easy. If you died, anybody here a whole family Muslim? MashaAllah, tabarakallah. MashaAllah. All your aunts and all that? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Even if it was one, who would want the Muslims to come to your janazah and somebody disrespect your family at your own janazah prayer? Who wants that? Nobody. So why would we go somewhere to somebody's janazah and not behave properly and be soft with their family, whether they Muslim or not? It's a dead relative. Tayyib. He said after that, this is on page number, I think this is important, paragraph, page 142. If you have the book, page 142, where he's talking about the believers are one body, jasadun wahid. يتألم بعضهم لألم بعض. It says, he should love good for his Muslim brother as he loves for himself, since the Muslims are a single soul and body. As the Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith, right? Jasadun wahid. The believers are one body, right? Each of them is pained by the afflictions of the other. When you see your brother, your sister hurting about something, it's supposed to hurt you. Right? It says after that, each of them is happy at the happiness of the other. You see somebody happy, we supposed to be happy. I'm happy for you. People get married, y'all, and we look them dead in their face with like, we don't even smile at them. Somebody just did a whole marriage. We might fist bump them. on a marriage. MashaAllah. Like, we don't even smile. No smile on the MashaAllah, nothing. One brother said the brother thought the brother was trying to chump him. The way he made the dua at him, how hard he looked at him in his face, and the way barakallahu feekum. It's a dua like, you know what I'm saying? It's funny, but that's what's going on. Right? That's how we carry ourselves around. Why? If the origin is we brothers, you want for your brother what you want for yourself, right? I mean, any piece, anything from goodness that you want for yourself, you want for the next Muslim. Not the Muslims you know, and then the ones you don't know, you hope they don't get it.
This behavior you're speaking of is like, smile at your brother, sadaqah.
Smile at, we all know the hadith, but we gotta do it. Smile at your brother is sadaqah. We can't, you see what I'm saying? See, what we learned outside of Islam, we pull inside it. We still practicing inside of the deen. So we sticking to codes and stuff like that is not revelation. And they go against the revelation. So the codes we sticking to keeps us from practicing the revelation. I can't smile, because if I smile where I'm from, that means you sweet, you soft, something wrong. You ain't right. So now I can't practice that sunnah. I can't get that sadaqah of smiling at the brother or the sister smiling at the sister. I can't get that. Why? Based on the code I'm living by, which is not deen. It's not deen. That's not deen. That's something else we learned somewhere else. Right? He said after that, they should exchange benefits amongst themselves. Exchanging benefits amongst themselves. That means that you actually giving some, as we say, let me read this real quick. As we say, in our terms, you got the plug on something, you get somebody to plug. It's a benefit. You know how we do, but we was taught, you know what I'm saying? You got to get your own. Like, I'm not giving that out like that. And this could be people that we with all the time, we pray with all the time, right? And I'm not saying, you know how we do, sometimes we burn stuff out, so you do have to check, make sure the person is not going to embarrass you, or they're not going to, you know, run your name in the ground, because you put people on the stuff sometimes, and then they do a 360 and do something crazy, and now it's your name on the line, right? And for real, in a situation like that, the same hadith applies. If you put me down with something, right, and I only got it based on your name, why would I do something to damage your reputation in that situation? Like, and I know I wouldn't want you to do that to me. It's the same thing. The same hadith applies. You want for your brother what you want for yourself. You won't want nobody go in there and destroy your reputation. That's your name. I'm only in here because of you. Now I'm going to go in there and act a fool, and then they're going to come to you and say, yo, what's up with your man? Right? It's real simple. I wouldn't want nobody to do that to me. I'm not going to do that to them. Tayyib. He said, and ward off harm from one another. Protect each other from harm. That can go a long way. At least, y'all, at least when it comes to because most people ask about people, and I'm going to use it as an example because this is what most people ask about people. When it comes to marriage, usually, most of the time is marriage, and then probably after that is business. I'm going to do a business deal with a person. I'm going to go in with this brother or this sister on this business. So they start asking about people. You know anything about such and such for marriage? Trying to marry this sister off, or the sister think about marrying his brother. Right? The origin, of course, is we're not allowed to speak about each other's faults and stuff like that. That's the usul. Even if it's true. Backbiting, you speak about your brother or your sister, even if it's true. Behind that, something that they won't want you to mention behind their back, even if it's true. We're not talking about people on the internet who already exposed it to everybody. They told everybody themselves. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a person. They don't expose it. Nobody's perfect. They got some issues. Now the person comes to you, brother, ask you about, oh, well, I always see you with him. Let me ask you about him. What's up with the brother you always with? Because my daughter, sister, I know she's interested in him. Right? You know he ain't right. He might not be suitable for marriage right now where he's at in his life. Just right now. Right now, he's not really ready. You know that. You can't put the sister in harm's way and cover that up and act like you. That's harming the sister. That's gonna put the sister in harm's way, and vice versa, because the sisters do it too. It's not it ain't always brothers doing it. Sisters do the same thing. If you know she's not right, they're not suitable, they're not ready right now, you should be honest. At that point now, that's the exception. You're living by the exception now of being able to mention the fault of somebody based on the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was one of the exceptional times to mention a person's fault, right? In that type of situation. But yeah, the last thing he talks about is the opposite applies. That if you love for your brother what you love for yourself, the opposite applies. That you hate for your brother or sister, same thing you would hate for yourself. If you wouldn't like somebody to do that to you, why we think it's okay to go do that? Whatever it is. That's if we practice in this short hadith that's probably like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words that we probably already memorized in English, 9 words in Arabic. We all know the hadith. If we using it though, it saves us a lot of trouble. And it builds and brings us together because we're thinking about each other. That means we're thinking about each other. I can't do that. No, it's not right. Not that I'm gonna get off what I can get off and he on his own or she on his own. That's not from the deen. The deen is that we're supposed to be concerned about one another. That's Islam. Islam is that you're supposed to be concerned about your brother. So what happens when your brother is practicing bid'ah? Your brother is practicing something that's not from the religion. Right? He or she or your sister, they practicing something that the Prophet ﷺ did not authorize that. Allah and His Messenger ﷺ did not authorize us to do that. Are we still concerned about him? Or are we not concerned about him? If you're concerned about him, you're going to try to help him. Helping them is not getting on the internet and slamming them in front of everybody. That's not going to help the situation. Helping them, even if we say giving them advice, helping them advice, you can't scream at somebody and be sarcastic when you're talking to them and talking to them like they're beneath you and then say, I gave them the truth. They don't want the truth. Before Allah, in front of Allah. That doesn't look like somebody really wants the truth for somebody. Even if they are dead wrong. They dead wrong. Because they're wrong doesn't mean we don't want good for them. We should still want good for them. We need to be figuring out a way to relay, to get the information to them so they can understand the mistake they're making. That's concern for the next Muslim. But we on the internet, man, we going ham on people in the comments, and there's just a whole party in the comments. Because the person who made the post, they really don't know. They don't know. They don't know. And sometimes the bigger problem is that they don't know they don't know. See? That's what the ulama call compound ignorance. Some people don't know, and not that they're comfortable not knowing, but they recognize that I don't know. And that person is, a lot of times, that type of person is easier to talk to. But then the other person, they don't know. But as we say, they think they do know. So they're a little bit more difficult to get through because they think they already know. So they already standing on something and they think what they're standing on is correct. So now when you come, they already have what they believe is true. You coming with something that's foreign. You coming with something new. No, where you get that from? And you think, not you, we think, it's me, I'm telling you, that the person's supposed to fold for that. They're supposed to leave off what they've been practicing and fold because it's you. Come on, you know I ain't gonna steer you wrong. We think, that's how we think. We think it's me coming to tell them. So you gotta take it, it's me. Like it's me. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't work. Probably majority of the time that's not gonna work. Right? So that means if the concern is really there, that means you, since you're gonna go correct somebody, you have to find the most appropriate way to get through to the person you're trying to talk to. You got to figure that out. You have to do some mental exercise to figure out how can I get through to this person. right? And that takes what? Wisdom. What else? Patience. That might take you time. That might take months. You spoke to that person new. It might take months to get through to a person. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Everything's not going to happen overnight. Like, we didn't get nobody in their Islam. Nobody got to where they are today, right, as a Muslim, without going through some stuff in their life. They went through some things, some periods in their life they experienced. Now you are where you are, right? And it's the same thing for everybody. So he says the last one is that a person does not, or the opposite applies, that you hate for your brother or sister what you hate for yourself. He says here, and this is the next paragraph, he says, thus, as you hate evil and harm for yourself, you should also hate it for your brother. Right? He said, it then follows that you do not bring evil to him or harm him. That we don't bring any evil to the way of the believers. This doesn't exclude, well, this hadith, let's just stick with this hadith. Leave it here. Tayyib. He says after that, or deceive him. Deception. What's deception? Huh? Lying is a form of deception, but what is deception in general? Getting over on people or finessing them. Jayid. Don't be finessing people. You don't finesse your brother or your sister. So that the youngins understand. You gotta be in the language that people understand. You know what I'm saying? You should not be finessing anybody. Because Islam doesn't teach us to do that. Islam doesn't teach us to be tricksters, tricking people and getting over on them. The deen doesn't teach us to do that. And we're not going to say that it only applies if they're Muslim, we don't trick them. But if they ain't Muslim, we can trick them. No. The deen in general does not teach us to be like that. Specifically in this hadith, let alone your Muslim brother or sister. Right? You don't deceive him or betray him. What is betrayal? What does it mean to betray somebody? To cross him. To act like you're a friend of him, but really you're an enemy to him. Don't cross him. What else? For betrayal. If a person they say don't cross him, they say, what you mean don't cross him? Don't backdoor him. Jade. Don't backdoor him. They trust you. Don't backdoor them. Huh?
Somebody trusts you and you know that they trust you.
They trust you and you know they trust you with something.
Because they trust you.
Now, since they trust you and they opened up and they made themselves vulnerable to you, don't take them, you know what I'm saying? Don't take their kindness for a weakness. They trusted you. We supposed to, as Muslims, we supposed to fulfill the trust. That's what we supposed to do. Does anybody know the only time? Never mind. The only time that you may possibly not fulfill your trust? Never mind, forget that. No, you gotta be. No, never mind. The point is, the Muslim is supposed to fulfill the trust. That's the origin of as a Muslim. Now, not that we tricksters and liars and we getting over and finessing people. That means we're not practicing Islam properly. If a person is known to be a trickster, they slick, they getting over on people, finessing everybody, that means they're not practicing deen correctly in those issues. Now, they might believe that Allah is one, and that the Prophet ﷺ, and that Allah he deserves to be worshipped alone, and the Prophet ﷺ is the final messenger, his sunnah is the truth. They might believe that part, yeah. But in those areas, they're not practicing this, and they're not practicing other aspects where the Prophet ﷺ taught us about being truthful and honest. Tayyib, yes, I'm sorry.
I was saying, using the gift of gab, eloquence.
Yeah, using the gift of gab to get over on people. Some people are good speakers. Some people just good speakers. They can just, you know what I'm saying? They good. They elegant. Some speeches, the Prophet said, some speeches, magic, sihr. Some people just talk good, and that's the problem that our sisters have. They don't understand that men in general, we're pretty good speakers when we need to be. And that's what the wali is there for. He can talk to you funny, but he can't talk to me funny. He can talk to you slick, but he can't talk to the wali slick. That's not going to fly with the wali. Or if you call him the wakil, whatever you call him. It's really a wali, but if you call him a wakil, that sweet talk that he's doing to you, he can't do that with the man. That's why the man is in place to make sure you protect it. But we think, some of us, they think that you doing too much doing. I already did the homework on them. I already checked them out. Right? And they don't want the wali to do his job, and then it's a mess. Tayyib. Moving to the next hadith, number 14, which is عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يحل دم امرئ مسلم إلا بإحدى الثلاث الثيب الزاني والنفس بالنفس والتارك لدينه المفارق للجماعة رواه البخاري ومسلم. Ibn Mas'ud in this hadith has to do with Yarhamakallah. This hadith gives us the rule and then the exception to the rule in the same hadith. All right? The Prophet ﷺ gave us the rule and then he gave us exceptions to the rule. Everybody with me? Islam has rules that we live by. These are rules that Allah laid down, the Prophet ﷺ put in place. Cool. There are exceptions to the rule that allow us to break the original rule at times. All right, that's what the exception means. So, for example, the rule in Islam when it comes to pork, can Muslims eat pork? See? What's the rule? You understand? See, you're coming with, see how people saying the exception, unless it's a need. No, what's the rule? Oh no, yeah. You with me? It's a lot of us like that though. A lot of us, we go straight to the exception. No, what's the, if we're gonna use the exception, a Muslim gonna say, you gonna tell a new Muslim you can eat pork? You're gonna tell them no, you can't eat pork. And if we see, this is how we are. When it comes to pork, right? That's like the ultimate joint with us. Like, yo, person could be on drugs, drunk. They not gonna eat a bacon sandwich though. They not eating no bacon sandwich from McDonald's. Whatever they do, that's like, no, I ain't doing that. They high and they want their food cooked on the other grill. Right? Stuck with a lot.
See, this hadith too. The hadith was in hadith of Qudsi, when it mentioned the blood of a Muslim sacred to honor.
No doubt. No doubt. This is not the only hadith, but in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ gave us the rule and the exception. So the rule, when it comes to Muslims eating pork, is what? Muslims can't eat pork. Haram. It's not allowed in Islam. That is forbidden. That's a sin. That's the rule. The exception, we're not even dealing with the exception. The exception is on an as-need basis. How many times, anybody in this room, how many times you've been in a situation where it was a dire need and you was about to die and you had to eat some pork? So why we bring that up first? You understand what I'm saying? Nobody's been on the verge of death and the only thing there was some pork to eat, so you had to eat it to sustain. Like, nobody did that. Never even, right? So why we run, we can't, we go into the exception. That's the exception. Why we bring up the exception instead of the rule? And it's a bunch of rules that we have to live by the rule, and when the time comes for the exception, then we deal with it. All right? That's the same thing in this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that the blood of a Muslim, let me see, I ain't changing that. It says, it is not permissible to spill the blood of a Muslim except in 3 cases, right? And here it says, it is unlawful to take the life of a Muslim except for one of 3 reasons, right? So the rule when it comes to Number one, let's just say, what does that mean, spill the blood? Make them bleed, period. The extent of spilling blood is, the furthest you can go is murder. That's the furthest you can go. But that don't mean just because I ain't kill him, I could drum him down and beat him up and cut him and all that. Right? Yes.
I have a question. So say two Muslims like spar, like just regular like boxing with others, and one of them make each other bleed. Do it still apply?
Yeah, that's what it is. You train rep.
Even if it's restraining?
Yeah, just train. You might as well box, bro. They basing it. They
Fadlu Yahi.
I used to box, so from experience.
Listen what I'm saying.
I'm sorry.
Let's stick with one thing at a time. Let's just stay right here, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, it is not permissible, la yahil. It is not lawful, it is not permissible to spill the blood of a Muslim. All right? Let's go through the whole hadith and then let's see where that fits in that. Because we got to understand what the rules are first. Once we get the rules, then we can figure out what the exceptions are. All right? Tayyib. So he says, in this hadith, this is just one hadith. It's other hadith, but we're only dealing with this one. That is not permissible. What is spill the blood now? Harm them, be specific. To make them bleed in any type of way. The extent of making somebody bleed is murder. The blood doesn't necessarily mean the blood has to come out. But specifically, let's just keep it was clear. So we won't go too far left. That's even getting into a brawl. Because you know how we do. We get upset. And if he say something else, I'm going to do what? I'm going to steal him. I'm going to smack him at least. I'm going to do something. Right? So, yo, you Muslim. That's the first thing. Yo, you Muslim. You tripping. That's supposed to stop us. Like, yo, the blood of a Muslim is haram. You can't spill. You can't make another Muslim bleed. That got to be like a rule. You can't make another Muslim bleed. How you going to do that? That has to be like, that should be like outrageous to us. That should be like, yo, that shouldn't be something light. Because the Prophet said it's not lawful. Islam doesn't allow that. That's the rule. Also with the other hadiths of the Prophet, right? That's the rule. The Prophet said, except in three situations where the blood of a Muslim is allowed to be spilled. Now, the next issue is, these three cases are not for the general people to carry out. It's not like every Muslim can practice these three cases. This is the case, I was there when this happened, so you could do something to a person. Nah, this is in a Muslim country. They have a court system, right? They have lawyers, they have judges, right? They have a procedure to find somebody guilty. They have witnesses, right? Sound familiar? All right. Cool, they do that too. And I say they, we, Yarhamkallah. Islam has a court system. It's procedure, right? The court system, right, are the ones who carry out the exceptions in the courts, which means that if you, a regular person walking around, were to see one of these three things, you say, well, the hadith said one of the exceptions you could do this, and you did it, okay, now they're going to take you to court, and you're going to be held responsible. Why? Because you're not authorized to carry out any punishment for anybody. That's chaos. Everybody clear? So if the rule is that you can't harm a Muslim, you can't spill the blood of a Muslim, then he gives us the exceptions. Now the exceptions need to be understood that, like Sheikh Fawzan mentioned, that the deen came to protect things. And this comes in, which is a science by itself, or subject matter, I don't know if it's a whole science, maqasid al-sharia, maqasid al-sharia, which is the intent behind the Islamic law. What is Islam? What's the intent behind the Islamic rule? The whole sharia, the whole Islamic law, what's the purpose behind it? Everybody with me? That's called maqasid al-sharia. What's the intent behind our deen? What is our deen as a whole, right? And that's why if you have Sheikh Fawzan's explanation, he mentions the 5 things that the deen came to protect, right? So it says Islam has brought 5 basic necessities. 5 things that as a whole deen, these things must be protected. Okay? Now, this is covering the whole deen down to 5, y'all. All right? Protection or preservation of the religion, the deen. The deen has to be protected. Everybody has to protect their deen at all costs. If that means I can't hang out with this one no more, I have to protect my deen. If that means I have to go to class to learn this, that's protection of my deen. Whatever I have to do to protect my deen, right, I take those necessary steps. When you go to the court system, part of protection of deen, as he says here, is execution of the renegade, he says, who plays around with the religion, which is basically apostate. Basically an apostate. Apostate, after going to court, trial, witnesses, like it's a whole lot. It's not that a person leaves Islam and you kill him. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. I don't know what the cartoon said, huh? Yeah, I don't know what the cartoon said or the YouTube video. If you go, it doesn't work like that. There's a procedure, just like we here in America, we have a procedure, right? You got to go to court. They might push a court date back. Witness, they using evidence. We have the same thing in Islam. So nobody's just going to go and you say, man, they left Islam, now they not Muslim no more. You can run down on them. It's a whole procedure. Yes.
What's the ruling on a family member that's apostate? You know they're apostate, but you're not supposed to cut ties with family members. What's the ruling on a family member that you know was apostate?
You already said it. You just answered your own question. You're not supposed to cut ties with a family member.
But the ruling is that.
How? How? We don't have the authority.
I'm not saying.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that because the thing is this: because we don't live under the Islamic rule, doesn't mean that it's not a punishment in the hereafter. Doesn't mean we don't have to answer to Allah. It just means that we're not in an area where it can be applied to us. That don't mean it's not a sin. That don't mean it's not something serious. That don't mean a person is not gonna have to answer before Allah on the Day of Judgment. All that means is we're not in a situation to apply that. That's just what it boils down to. Yes.
And question, in the case of like what he was saying, where it's like that situation where it's a family member that apostated, where it's multiple like rulings and things connected to it. Since we live in a place where we can't all, it's not an Islamic country, so it might be like exactly that, where the family member apostated, where they, in an Islamic country, they would deal with this court system and then they would get their punishment. So you don't really have to worry about that. Do you just practice what you can? Like how you just said.
What you mean?
No, I'm just trying to say. Like how you said, you don't, that's not tax for us to do the punishment. So all we require to do is practice what we can, which is maintain the ties of the kinship.
That's it. It's a whole chapter, right? It's a whole set, not in this book. We know how you do the chapter of fasting in a book. You the chapter of marriage, the chapter of salat, the chapter of wudu. There's a chapter on crimes and punishments. It's a whole chapter of how to deal with that. That takes, in simple terms, that's a governmental type of thing. That's not an individual practice. Okay, that's a whole procedure, governmental procedure. That's not an individual practice. I'm sorry.
This is why we taught to love moderately and hate moderately,
Right, no doubt.
Like you said, if your family go apostate, there is a chance before they die, they may reach
It is. Somebody could leave Islam. That don't mean they're going to die.
Take the medium, don't be too extreme.
Don't be too extreme. It's not a condition that we keep the family ties that they have to be Muslim to keep the family ties. That's not a condition. The Prophet says something that making a condition that in order to be good to your family and keep ties with your family, they got to be Muslims. A lot of us might do that, but that's not what Islam teaches us to do. I'm sorry, Sheikh.
No, I just want to make a point where when a lot of non-believers, they mention that if somebody steals in a Muslim country, they get their hand chopped off.
Right.
They don't know that it's a whole...
It's a whole procedure. It's a whole procedure. It's a whole court system. It's not, it's not random people just getting punished on the street. Like, it doesn't work like that. I don't know, you see a 2-minute YouTube clip and they put a title on it.
I was attending the community. One of the instructors down there, that's how he came out. He said, oh, you steal something over there, they cut your hand off. And I was upset when he said it, so I didn't say nothing. I just had to calm myself down before I got my hand up
Right.
to correct him on it.
It's conditions. It's a whole lot. It's a whole procedure that goes into that. Tayyib. So Islam came to protect the religion, preservation of the intellect, to protect a person's intellect, right? Which means what?
You mentioned life.
We ain't get there yet. How do you protect a person's... What kills a brain? Drugs, alcohol. Islam came to protect the brain. Therefore, Islam prohibits anything and the intoxicant. Right? Yeah. This number 2. I'm sorry. The first one was protect the religion. The second was protect the intellect, a person's mind, their aql. And he says here by protecting it from whatever harms it, such as intoxicants, hard drugs. Right? The third thing, Islam came to protect life. How many ayats in the Quran about killing one person? As Allah says, like killing. Right? So Islam came to protect life. If Islam came to protect life, why would we think we could just go around and do the exception at random people? It's not like that. Right? Number 4, preservation of wealth. A person's money. That Islam has rules set in place to protect a person's wealth. It says here, by amputating the hand of the thief and the highway robber. He didn't mention any, listen, the Sheikh Fawzan, he didn't mention any of the conditions that go with that. He didn't mention any of the conditions. It's conditions for all of that. It's procedure. It's now you still a lollipop, they cut your hand off. It don't work like that. Right? There's a whole chapter with conditions, but he didn't mention that. All right? And number 5 was preservation of honor. What's honor? Reputation. Lineage. Lineage, yes. What's lineage? Just in case we won't. Your family name, your family tree. I don't know if they got a new name for the family tree. Your legacy? Yeah, that's my man. He keep me up to speed. Tayyib, how you protect honor? He says by flogging the false accuser who accuses a Muslim of fornication. Meaning, if you live in a Muslim country, you say somebody committed zina. Because we do it all the time. And we do this all the time. We say people, we might not use the term fornicator. But a fornicator is a person who's having sex outside of marriage. In our terms, even though it's a little more detailed than that. We're going to get to that. But anyway, we'll say people, or some people, they'll just call a person, they'll say, man, and call them a zani. Some people do it just like that. Now, in the Islamic court, you have to produce witnesses. That's a total slight on somebody's reputation. You got to produce witnesses in court. You can't produce witnesses? Well, we're going to whip you. You're going to get flogged. Now, we run around, since we're not under the law, we say anything about anybody. And that ...
What do that witness have to bear witness?
That witness have to bear witness that they saw you
Penetration.
going in. Like sexually. They saw it. It's a whole procedure that goes into that. Now, we run around, we'll call a person a name. So now, as it says, you have to protect that person's honor. See, a lot of us might not feel it because our background. So it might not affect us. But for a person who has a clean background, they come from a clean family, they like that's not something that's normal to them. They don't take that lightly. That's a serious slight on their family, on their reputation. That's just like, that would be the closest we probably can get. You're going to marry your daughter off and somebody start going around saying your daughter not a virgin. You got a problem with that. Right? That's probably the closest, Allah Alam, right? You're going to have a problem with that. So now, we'll do something, like, people will do that. Which in reality, what you mean she's not a virgin? Like, what are you saying? And then we might come with a story.
They call it honor killing or something like that.
All it's the same. Either way, you would have that. Your story is not going to stand up in court based on who you are. Produce your witnesses, since you wanted to defame this woman or this girl, right? Produce your witnesses. You can't produce witnesses? Okay, then we have a punishment for you. And that punishment is not carried out by the general people walking down the street, even if they know he or she did it. If they were to take it into their own hands, as we say, then they're going to be punished for what they do. I'm sorry, Yus.
What if a person is not married but they have children? They pop up with children. Like what would like you may mention like the 4 witnesses. Wouldn't that be like if
It depends. And this is another thing, when it comes to that, and I'm not going to go too deep in this, but when it comes to the court system, right, especially when it comes to these type of issues, they're very, 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 very particular. Very, very. What we would consider to be evidence is not evidence in the courtroom. What we would consider to be evidence is not evidence in the courtroom. So it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be a penalty for what they did to a judge, but it may not carry the same punishment. Everybody with me? Because somebody might say it was on video. Well, we all know videos could be edited. Right? Videos could be edited. It was a picture. Pictures could be edited. Which doesn't mean it's not a punishment for it, but it may not carry the same punishment. It may not carry the same punishment. Yes?
So what if a situation like that happened? Like someone made that claim, and then you had to come with the proofs. So then the ruling was overturned in the courts.
Nah, that's too much. I ain't going. That's too much shit. That's too much. That's a whole chapter. That's a whole chapter.
So there's 4 witnesses, right? So does that mean the person who saw it plus 4, or the person who saw it plus 3?
Whatever you do, it has to be 4 people that saw it. If you're the one relaying the message, you must have saw it.
Right.
You can't produce your witnesses, you better off. Because it's a consequence for not being able to produce them witnesses once you go to the court.
My question was, the person that saw it plus 3 more people?
Yeah.
Not 4 more people?
No, that's 5 witnesses. If you have 5, that's even stronger.
At least 4.
You know what I'm saying? It has to be 4.
Bouncing off what we used to say about the woman may have a baby, even though she wasn't married. How do we deal with that if we got a gather between that and, I was assuming we judge by what's apparent.
Right.
So apparently you had a baby, but you ain't been married, so.
Even if, let's just say that was the case, what we gonna do?
No, we laymen.
You understand what I'm saying? If that was the case in a Muslim country, there's a whole research they're gonna do. We're gonna say, us, not judges, not knowing the legal system, we're gonna say what you said, 1 + 1 = 2. Like I said to a sheikh one time, I said, Sheikh, this when it first really came up. A sister said she found a phone number in her husband's pocket, which to her equals zina, that he had sex with her, to her. A phone number in the pocket, does that equal that? Not necessarily. But to us, you see how we do? We go right there, boom, and that's not the case. I'm like, hold up, Sheikh. There's a phone number in the pocket. What does that prove? What does a phone number in the pocket prove? It proves something. It proved they had a phone number in the pocket. Who is a woman? Is he married? Like, what's going on? But for you to take a phone number in the pocket, and I'm not saying there's no repercussion for the phone number in the pocket. I'm just saying you can't make that equal to. You understand what I'm saying? You feel me? Now you starting to, what's going on? You got to start doing Everybody with me? So those 5 things are what Islam came to protect in general. How they are protected varies. They're protected in different ways. It's not one way to protect all of them.
Like going off what he was saying, I think those type of situations, because we live in this country where we don't have an Islamic system, is literally of no benefit for us to even like mind those people's business. Like that sister that had that baby that popped up that wasn't married, whatever the case may have been, is literally of no benefit for a person who's not trying to marry her. You just inquiring about that situation for absolutely no reason, and no benefit.
Right. The only benefit, I'm not gonna say the only benefit, but one of the benefits of that whole section is understanding that we understand the severity of those actions. Like if I was living, I'd be like, so if I did this in a Muslim country, you telling me they would whip me? So that means what I gotta face Yom Al-Qiyamah before Allah? You know what I'm saying? Even if I'm not living in a country that's gonna carry that out, what do I have to look forward to as a punishment on the Day of Judgment? So that's a benefit, even though we might not be under a Muslim country and all that, it's still, we Muslim. We respect the laws of the deen. Fadl.
In relation to the Messenger of Allah, when he
Sorry,
was living in Mecca compared to when he moved to Medina and he established the Islamic State, should we conduct our affairs how he conducted his affairs while he was in Dar al-Kufr compared to...
That's definitely worth looking at. The Prophet ﷺ lived in a time where, in 2 times, one time the Muslims were the minority. They weren't the majority of people, and they lived a certain way. That's worth paying attention to when you read the story of the Prophet ﷺ, how they conducted themselves as the minority, and it's books just on that specifically. Like, fiqh, it's called aqalliyat. How to apply things when you're the minority in the place. How to apply Islam as the minority. That's a whole door by itself that a lot of us don't pay attention to. Yes, I'm sorry.
So just to not keep on the like what we don't know but we think, as far as like what something like that is zina. If we don't know it to be right, truly apparent, when that count is spying, if you trying to figure out what they did, if they don't have to do it.
Allahu A'lam if it's spying. Allahu A'lam if it's spying, but we just got to check our intention. What are we trying to do? What's the benefit of finding out? Like he said, at that point, what do you just want just to know? You know what I'm saying? If I'm not marrying her, she not or he not trying to marry my daughter, like that's between them and Allah. Right? Allahu A'lam. Tayyib. If we're going to say that the blood is only permissible or allowed to spill blood in 3 instances, and those instances are not from general people walking down the street that you could just run up on somebody. Now he gives the examples of when it is allowed to, as sometimes it says, spill blood, shed blood, when is blood lawful, which means, as he says, the first one, a nafs bin nafs, right? As they say, eye for eye, as you used to say, or somebody murders somebody, right? And it says here, life for a life, meaning you murder somebody, then what? Islamically, you can be murdered. The court system, according to the court system. Not according to you upset somebody killed somebody in your family or from your block or from your hood that you think you can now retaliate. No, Islamically, that's not acceptable. Islamically, that's not acceptable. We're not talking about the street. We're talking about deen. Deen, that's not acceptable. Islamically, that's not acceptable. Everybody clear? We're not talking about what the streets taught us and how you got to move. We're not talking about none of that. We're talking about according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ.
That's where that question, mad deen.
Yes. What is your deen? What does your deen teach you about that? What does your deen teach you about if someone is murdered close to you? How are you supposed to deal with that? Does Islam say you can just go out and kill the person who killed somebody that you know? Islam don't give us that authority. And if you take it into your own hands in this country, it's a penalty, right? If you take it to your own hands in the Muslim country, it's a penalty. It ain't like just here. No, if you were to run off and somebody murdered a family member of yours in a Muslim country, you ran off and you saw the person in the street, you ran down, you killed them. You in the same boat they in now. You took a life unauthorized. Only authorized life taken is according to the government. Just like here. They have what we have, death row, right? Where you go on death row, they kill, eventually a person gets killed. Whether it's injection, electrical chair, a person dies. Under the authority of the government. And it's the same thing in Islam. It's not open season.
I was gonna say the same. I was gonna say it too as well, like following the laws of the land. So therefore, you go to the people of authority.
No doubt. That's deen. Now, what we do on the street, what they told us, what the music taught us and all that, the culture and all that, we don't live by that. If we living by that, we should expect some trouble with Allah. Because a lot of it, goes against the revelation of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. So he says al-qisas, which is, as it says here, in this one it says retribution, I think. It's translated as retribution, a life for a life. Of course, that's done by, it says the law of retribution, which is in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 178. Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kutiba alaykum al-qisas. Allah says, oh, you who believe, the law of retribution has been prescribed for you, which means the eye for eye. He says, فَرْضٌ إِذَا طَالَبَ بِهِ الْمَجْنِي عَلَيْهِ أَوْ وَلِيُّهُ. Even if, this shows how Islam, a person is murdered, right? Under the Islamic, a person is murdered. That means the murderer goes to prison. Now, what's going to happen? Do we say kill him? They can be killed. If the family of the murderer, if that's what they are seeking, because they might not want him to be killed. They might not want the man or the woman to be killed, even though they murdered somebody from their family. Yeah, that's the point. It's other options besides killing the killer in Islam. Everybody understand? Meaning, a person murders somebody, it's not 100% that they have to be murdered. Does the family, though, have the right in the court? They go to court, person's found guilty. Does the family have the right for the person to seek that the person is killed? They have the right. They also have the right to choose something else, which is less than murder.
Remember, you talked about how we only want justice when we've been wrong, but we don't never think about the forgiveness aspect of it.
No doubt.
Like, we want forgiveness when we do wrong.
No doubt.
But when we've been wrong, we want justice.
Yeah, we want forgiveness when we do wrong, but when somebody does wrong to us, we want justice. Yeah, I'm sorry. The family, it's not like it's open for anything, but they can forgive them altogether. Family has the right to do that. Or they could seek that the person is murdered. They have the right. They did murder somebody. They did murder like their son, like somebody in their family was murdered. So the wali, the person may come and say, no, I know a situation that happened. And the son was murdered. And the family of the murderer came, and they did this whole thing that they do, seeking the forgiveness of the family. Yeah, they did. It was a whole lot of them, though. Like, it was like their family came. It was a whole lot of them in front of the boy's house. And they had this thing like when they came in front of the house of the murdered, the victim. So the murderer's family came in front of the house of the victim. And they have this thing where they take the shimag off, the red and white scarf. And if they take that off and drop it in front of you, they seeking their part and they want you to forgive them for whatever you did. The whole family not the whole family. A bunch of them came in front of their house. They all took them off. That's big in their culture. That's like, it's like, to us, that's like, yeah, but as a man, I gotta let you ride. As a man, I gotta excuse you if you do all that. To us, it's on that type of level. But the father of the victim, he doesn't have to accept it. And he didn't accept it. He wants life for life. He has that right. And there's other situations where the family will call it off. So that's why he says, if the family, let me see how he translates it here. It says that is obligated. It says if it is demanded by the victim or his relatives. That's why it says that. Because the family could excuse him altogether.
So you're saying the father judgment supersedes everybody else in the family?
Generally, the wali. Yes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So
like you say, the son was murdered. So what if he was married? Does the wife, is her?
Allah alam.
Like who word is?
But it says the wali. Which relatives? Allah alam. But definitely the wali has a say in it.
And also, the person still had the opportunity that the courts might find him innocent because he might have had a legitimate reason for the sheriff.
It could have been
to defend himself.
It could have been an accident. So it's not like a murder just gonna get murdered. It could have been an accident. It could have been a situation and something happened where for example, if a person is not found guilty of murder, it doesn't mean there's not a consequence. The consequence is just not the consequence for murder. But it's still another penalty. It's still another consequence. Everybody understand? It's just not the same. Yeah. Now it depends. It depends on. We're not hiring. It's not. This dean. The court system is dean. So we're not hiring them. We're not hiring them. We're not hiring them lawyers that's gonna get you off just to. You know what I'm saying? Everybody with me? It's not that type of. You just get a powerful lawyer to lie for you. The lawyer is Muslim. Both of them. We living by the book. Not saying he trying to send him to jail, but.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So now you get a lawyer, right? What is the purpose of the lawyer?
The purpose of the lawyer is to make sure. I wish what's the name was here. He left. The purpose of the lawyer is to make sure all the time that the proper procedures are taken in finding the person guilty. If you're trying to find somebody guilty, that means your job is to make sure that don't get over on my client. Make sure the procedures are done properly. Because you could skip a step, and if you did that step would prove that the person's not guilty.
Right, and I'm asking in relation to the way this court system over here. For instance, if somebody kills somebody over here, right, your lawyer can know you did it. He's still going to try to get you off. Is it the same in that court system?
No. I don't know about. I don't know. I spoke to lawyers. My question was the same thing. Here, if you know somebody, like how that work, you know that. And I was told, my job is to make sure that if they're trying to find them guilty, that they do all the steps from A to Z. That's my job, and I have to prove. They have to prove that they're guilty. So that means they have to go from A to Z. Now, what happens when they skip step C and step F and step Q? Okay, had they did those steps, it would prove that they're not guilty. But you skipped them. So now since you skipped them, it looks like my client is guilty. That's what I was told. Allah, I don't know what people are doing. Point is that everybody in there is Muslim, and what's the ruling? The rule is the Quran and the Sunnah, and that's what we living by. What's in the person's heart as far as a lawyer? Allah. The second time, that is the exception to spilling the blood, as he says, a thayyib zani, which is it says the married person who commits adultery. He says a thayyib alladhi wati'a imra'atahu muslima. Which basically means once a person marries in Islam, once they've been married, the person who's been married and then has sex outside of marriage is not like the person who was never married and had sex outside of marriage. They're not the same. Okay? We say adultery, and like we mix them together. But if it was to go to a court, it's a difference. So this hadith is talking about the person. What do? They already tasted marriage. They've experienced marriage. After marriage, an Islamic marriage, they go back after that and then have sex outside of marriage, zina outside of marriage. That person is the thayyib zani. That person could be, according to the courts, killed. Why? They say this person is intentionally spreading evil in the society. And this is considering protecting, out of the five, what is this protecting? The honor, which includes, it includes the religion, it includes the lineage, the family tree. You got to protect to a lot of us, it's not that big of a deal. But if you go to people, they know 20 years worth of history in their family. They know their grandmothers and grandfathers 6, 7 generations back. That stuff is big to people all over the world. All over the world, y'all. Maybe not to us, but all over the world, that's a big thing, knowing who your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your great-great, how many numbers. That's big to a lot of people. So from in that angle of protecting that, knowing who's who, who's the father, we know it's people who don't know their fathers. It's children don't know their fathers. It's women, they don't know who the father is, right? It's a way to protect that and stop that. It's a way to do that. And Islam came to protect that portion of a person's life. So the Thayyib Zani, he says, فَإِذَا زَنَى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ الزَّوَاجِ صَارَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. If a person does that after they have been married, as he says, they become people who spreading evil. Knowing what the marriage does and the protection of the family that the marriage brings. And then you go after that and commit zina. This is the Thayyib Zani. Yes.
I was going to ask you a question I'm trying to fit.
These are the exceptions. All these exceptions are only carried out by the court. These are court orders. That means a person has to be found guilty. Even if a person was the third one, a person apostates. Right? As he says, the person who leaves, forsakes his religion. A person apostates from Islam. That has to be confirmed. We'll say, such and such is not Muslim anymore. See why you do that? See why you say that? For real? Why you say that? They don't be praying. We'll say, they don't pray like that. Yeah. Or we'll say they don't pray. So the next question is, well, how can you confirm that they don't pray? What's your confirmation that the person that everybody knows to be Muslim, what's your confirmation that they're not Muslim anymore? They don't pray. How can you confirm, sir, sister, how can you confirm they don't pray? What's your confirmation? Right? Listen how serious this is. If that person is found, like, it leads to death. We'll just say a person that, like, right? It's a serious charge. It's a serious charge, accusation of somebody. So the question is going to be, well, how do you know you don't pray? How can you confirm that the person doesn't pray anymore? We'll say something like, they don't really come through like that. They'll say, they don't really come around like that. I'm telling you this from personal experience. That's what brother told me. Brother told me he was not going to go to a person's janazah. I said, why you ain't going to go to the janazah? I don't even know if he was Muslim. I said, why you say that? He stopped coming around. Now listen, y'all think it's funny. Listen how dangerous this is. This is dangerous. This is a Muslim. The right of the Muslim is what? Fardu Kifaya. The Muslim dies, you got to wash him, wrap him, pray over him, bury him. We're going to throw that out the window. Throw that out the window. Why? He stopped coming through. He don't come around like he used to. I said, here? It wasn't here. It was in another match. I said, you come here? He said, you don't really come through like that. I said, he could have prayed in the house, man. He got a job? Yeah, we could have prayed at work. He said, I don't know. Now, it sounds crazy, but I'm just saying how far that goes. Not living, that comes from not living according to the rule. You need confirmation to practice the exception. You can't just practice the exception. You can't make a rule, and you've made a ruling on a person. Now you about to make a final ruling on a person, right? And remove them, according to you, they're not Muslim anymore. Based on what? Based on them not coming to the masjid as often as they used to come to pray with you. In this city with all these masjids and all the opportunity, even if they didn't go to the masjid, he didn't pray in the house. She didn't pray in the house. Well, she don't even cover. Listen, she covered when she prays. I'm not saying she's supposed to be doing that, but she covered when she prays. She covers. She puts on the overgarment and prays, and then takes it off, and goes about the rest of her day. Is she supposed to be doing that? No, she's not supposed to be doing that. Did she pray?
Yes.
She prayed.
Yo, I was just in Atlanta, and it was a prayer room, so I had to go pray. Sister came in with a suit, with a suit on. She had a little box in the corner with an overgarment in it. She literally grabbed the overgarment, threw it on.
Lord give her strength, man. I mean, Lord give her strength. Now, how we going there? You going to turn around and say, I'm just saying, you never know. And even if it was a court, the court has to confirm that. We'll say, man, I ain't going to the janazah. Wow. They start, listen, y'all, listen how crazy this is. I'm not going to the janazah. Why not? Not because the person stopped praying, because they started praying somewhere else. That's how bad it is. You're not going to pray over because they don't pray with you. So you're not going to pray over their dead body. Allah help us and give us strength and understanding of the deen.
Question: what's the Islamic ruling on how would they deal with that when making takfir on someone?
Even that, all this a court, all those words. See, we use them generally. Takfir, tabdil. We use them just like they regular. You say that in a Muslim country, somebody gonna take you to court for slander. That's slander. You call a person an innovator, that's slander. You just slandered my reputation. So I could take you to court. Listen, now it's gonna be a whole procedure. We just get on the internet, we just say whatever we want to say about people, the whole community down there, shout out, they this, they that. But in the Islamic court, that's slander. Like, that's a charge. You accuse me of something. You know what I'm saying? You with me? The way we use them is so freely, and we use them just like free reign. But if you're in the Islamic court, like, that's a charge. Yeah. And you got to stand before Allah with that. So he says, the tariqul dinihi, the murtad, the person who left their religion, can they be the apostate? Can they, under Islamic court? They can be. It's a procedure though. It's not open season like it may have been. They might mention it on the news or a YouTube clip or a person said it, but it's not like that. It's a whole court procession, whole court procedure. You're gonna need a lawyer. You're gonna need witnesses. Say the person don't pray anymore. How you know they ain't praying? Now they got to question the witness. Who's the witness that they're not Muslim anymore? How can you prove that the person doesn't pray anymore? Right? It's a procedure. The last one he says, when mufariqu lil jama'ah, the person who, as it says, leaves off the jama'ah, is it permissible to fight them? And that's a whole discussion in itself. He says, وَيُرَادُ بِذَلِكَ الْخَوَارِجِ. It says they're the one that separates from the community. He mentions specifically here the Khawarij or the Bughat, and that's on page number, I think that's on 146. It says, referring to the Khawarij and the aggressors and whoever breaks loose from the obedience and rebels against the generality of the Muslims. Basically, people who rebel against the government. There's a government system in place, and there are people who rebel against the government. That's one group, and then it's another group who are also rebellers, and they believe that if you do a certain sin, you're not a Muslim anymore. These are people who, the reasoning behind it is they'll harm the society in whole with murder. They have no problem doing that. So therefore, in that case, who's allowed to fight those people? The government. In all of these cases, the government is given the 3 exceptions to spill blood, not the general Muslims walking around, right? And even if we're not people who are in a situation where this is going to be in our day-to-day lives, it still should teach us the severity and the seriousness of the sin itself, being careful about what we say about people, knowing the rule for something and the exception, that the rule is to be practiced, not the exception. We have to live by the rule. A lot of our problems are coming because we're living by the exceptions. And if you tell people that, they probably don't know what the heck you're talking about. What did that mean? That's like too much talk. Come on, they innovators, man. They ain't on. You know they not right. What's the rule though? The rule is that what? You love for your brother what you want for yourself. They don't know. Teach them. I can't talk to them. All right, well, because you can't talk to them doesn't mean they shouldn't be taught. If you're really concerned, if I'm really concerned about a person, right, and they won't listen to me, what should I do? Find somebody to listen to. Find somebody that got a good relationship to talk to them. If you're really concerned. If we're concerned about people, and we so concerned about the guidance of the people, the guidance of the people, okay, cool. If the people are not going to listen to you, then you should, if you're really concerned, find somebody that they're going to listen to so they can be guided. Or does everybody have to be guided by you? Everybody have to accept guidance based on what you say? We got to be careful about our niyyah. If they're not going to listen to me, I probably know they're not going to listen to me anyway. I see you have you got a relationship with them. Maybe you could talk to him about ABC then, because I know he ain't going to listen to me. I know she's not going to listen to me. Whatever, we might have had a fallout in the past, whatever. What I do know is if I say something that's not going to be good, so I'm going to just not say anything. If I'm really concerned about the person being right, being corrected. And if it's just about me saying something or to show, I am who I think I am, then that's different. May Allah protect us from all of that. But we'll stop there, inshallah, unless there's any questions.
What was the name of that book again?
Which one?
Al-Qadiyat.
Fiqh al-Qaliyat. That's not one book, that's like a subject. Fiqh al-Qaliyat, which is like the fiqh of how to practice and ahkam rulings when you're the minority in the place, like us. We're a minority, so it could be that and a lot of things we don't understand in general. A lot of us don't understand a lot of issues of fiqh anyway. That's not really something that is really popular in our communities. So that's why I'm just using the example we had. We'll say to a lot of us, the connections we make are not necessarily fair. And they're not just connections. So we'll say something like, right? We'll say the phone number equals zina. We'll just do that just like that. No in between. When that's not necessarily the case. If you really stop, wait a minute, hold. That doesn't equal that. Doesn't mean something, it means something. All right, let's start there. What does it mean? What can we prove? We don't really go down that type of process. We just go straight to the end. You know what I'm saying? The person did something in the masjid. I went there and they did something in the masjid. So if they did that in the masjid, that means they are innovators. They offer. We go straight there. No in between. It could have been this. It could have been this. It could have been this. Did you check this? None of that. And that comes from really not really understanding the details and the fine tunes of things and the real detailed issues.
What do we say to the person, because taking the phone number in the zinad situation, a woman sees a phone number in her husband's pocket. She jumps to the conclusion and say that it's zinad.
Okay.
It's wrong, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now what do we say to the person when it all comes out that he really did make zinad?
Then
it's still wrong for her to jump to that conclusion. So that's what I'm saying. So what do we say to that person?
Even though it may come out later that they were right, at the time they didn't have the authority to make that ruling on them. You didn't have enough evidence. You can't just say, see, I told you. No, you didn't have no evidence when you said you spoke without knowledge. That's not allowed in Islam. That's not allowed. Now, if it comes out later, that's even when it comes out later, right? That's still at the time when you made a claim on something. If you would have been taken to court at that point, you wouldn't have any proof. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be careful. And it doesn't mean that the phone number example is not a punishment for it, or it's not the repercussions in the court. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you can't put everything on the same level. You can't put a phone number the same as a person that 4 witnesses saw having sexual intercourse. They're not the same in the courtroom. That's the point of that. It doesn't mean that, well, brother, don't say the brother was saying this, you find a phone number. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in the court, if you took those things in the court, they're going to do an investigation, just like they do here. If you came with just that investigation is only going to allow the court system to go but so far based on that piece of evidence. Well, we got a picture right here. Pictures could be tampered with, can't they? I mean, we all know that. How would you like if it was you on the other end and somebody tampered with a picture and made you look like bad, like you was doing something? You know what I'm saying? So all that's going to be considered in the courtroom. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.